Hi all, my name is Pratyush and I'm a PhD candidate at Johns Hopkins. This video is about our work Subverting Cryptographic Hardware Used in Blockchain Consensus, which is joint work with my advisor, Matthew Green, and this will appear at FC 2024. So let's talk about backdoors. Backdoors are not new at all. They've been around for a while. Some early examples of backdoor software are internet worms MyDoom and SoBig, which you would receive over email. And then as soon as you open the attachment in the email, they would install software on your device, and then basically your device becomes infected and starts sending out spam emails to others. And this actually caused a huge uptick in email activity in the early 2000s. Then there are also hardware backdoors where some hardware manufacturer of a device forgets to remove root access to information on the device, which of course causes huge issues because, once a device is sold, it's no longer owned by the manufacturer. There have also been cryptographic backdoors, which is what this talk is about. Some examples of such backdoors are dual EC, which was a deterministic random bit generator. But let's look at some general ways in which cryptography can be backdoored. One important backdooring mechanism to consider is the weakening of the key generation algorithm, right? Because the security of the keys is one of the most important aspects of many cryptographic algorithms. And as soon as this part is backdoored, you can see a bunch of issues. Then you can also have backdoors based on fixed parameters like common reference strings, where the backdooring individual can break the security of the system. Then there are also backdoors which are due to the malicious design of algorithms, where cryptographic algorithms, if implemented properly in hardware and software, are supposed to work fine. And this gives a notion of apparent security to users, but indeed the implementation was performed by a malicious individual and there's malicious design. And then also, of course, the key generation weakening is also related to this, which is reducing the entropy that is used in the randomness needed for a bunch of these algorithms. For example, in cryptocurrency wallets, there have been mistakes made in the past where the randomness used was not good enough, and the resulting brute force attacks on key generation algorithms were good enough and funds were stolen. Our goal in this work is to talk about cryptographic hardware that is used in puzzle-solving devices. A lot of these puzzles, such as proof of work, VDFs, proof of space, are deployed in blockchain consensus today. There's also a development of zero-knowledge provers as hardware. We'll focus on these puzzle primitives today, and we will try to answer the question of whether hardware manufacturers can backdoor these devices that are used for puzzle solving in blockchain consensus, and if they can reap rewards. Cryptographic puzzles are actually quite similar to puzzles in general, where you take a puzzle instance, you solve it, and you get a reward. Cryptographic puzzles have some resource requirements, where without investing certain resources, you cannot solve the puzzle. For example, in proof of work, the resource needed is computational capabilities. In VDFs. The resource needed is time, which is emulated using computational cycles, sequential computational cycles in particular. And then in proof of space, you need disk space, right? A cryptographic puzzle consists of the following algorithms, where the setup algorithm decides the puzzle difficulty, resource requirement, and also the input domain from which puzzle instances can be sampled. The evaluation algorithm is what the puzzle solver actually runs to generate a solution, and a proof. Sometimes you'll see that the evaluation algorithm is split into evaluate and prove, where you take a solution and you prove that you generated it properly. I'm going to combine both of them in one here. And then there's also the verification algorithm, which can check solutions and proofs against inputs. Let's look at some early applications of puzzles. Client puzzles were first deployed to prevent denial of service attacks by overloading servers. So you just make the servers give out puzzles which need to be solved for queries to be answered today. And more importantly, these are used in consensus in blockchains where, consensus algorithms are basically trying to solve the puzzle of who gets to perform a certain high reward task, right? There are different puzzle constructions, of course. Some of them involve using ASICs, FPGAs, or GPUs, depending on the puzzle construction and the puzzle type. Like I said, the key issue here is you have some high-stake applications, and first party to solve the puzzle gets a hefty reward. So this creates a situation where backdoors might be possible, and there's obvious motivations for them. Let's talk about algorithm substitution attacks. These are basically a way for formally modeling backdooring of cryptographic algorithms. So all cryptographic algorithms come with certain security and privacy properties, and then the hardware or software implementation is provided by a potentially malicious party, right? And so ASAs are the subjective study of such attacks, and we try to answer the question of whether such malicious parties can break your cryptography and go undetected, right? This was introduced first by Young and Young. And then in Crypto 2014, Bellari, Patterson, and Rogaway presented their seminal work on ASAs, and they discussed a few game-based definitions. Here's an example of one of them. So here we're talking about symmetric encryption. BB here represents Big Brother. And in this algorithm, there is an implementation of a symmetric key encryption algorithm and decryption algorithm, and the Big Brother has maliciously modified the cryptographic algorithms so that in the normal operation, they would never be able to find out any information by looking at ciphertext, but because they subverted the operations, now they can actually find out more information than they're supposed to because they know some extra key material and the algorithms are not running as they were supposed to. ASAs on cryptographic puzzles seem slightly weird because you have this model where there are no cryptographic keys, so to say. You have some attacker. So this is basically our model now. There's an attacker who is manufacturing these puzzle solving devices, and then there's a detector who's buying these puzzle solving devices. The detector buys these devices and invests further resources to solve puzzles. The goal of the attacker, who is the hardware manufacturer, is that they want to subvert the puzzle solver to reap some benefits, and then they also want to make sure that detection of the subversion is not possible. Let's look at blockchain consensus today, right? Basically, there's a task to be performed, and there's many parties that are willing to perform such a task. So this can be block proposing. And of course, they want to do it because they can reap the rewards. So the way puzzles solve these problems is like you pick people randomly based on their investment. So in proof of stake, this is the amount of stake you have in the system. So you pick randomness and it's weighed by how much you've invested. And so algorithm substitution attacks actually attack this part of the process. So in puzzle-based consensus, there's a network server that sends out puzzle instances, and then individuals try to solve this puzzle and send solutions back. And then if their solution is correct, then they win a reward. This is also deployed in two key settings where there is pool-based puzzle solving and individualized puzzle solving. In pool-based puzzle solving, there is a pool operator who pools resources across multiple puzzle solvers and distributes work amongst them. So if you take proof of work mining as an example, to solve, of course, proof of work puzzles, you first buy hardware. This is an example of what this hardware looks like from a major manufacturer. As you can see, for big corporations, this is not a huge cost, but for individuals, it's multiple thousands of dollars to participate in puzzle solving by first, of course, buying these devices, and then these devices are expensive to run because they consume a lot of electricity, right? So I will be using Bitcoin proof of work hardware and tools as an example. So let's look at this particular image, which is actually quite important for this work, where you have on the left is the major manufacturers of Bitcoin hardware. There's only 3 or 4 big players that manufacture most of the devices. And then on the right, you have mining pools. And as you can see in the image, 2 of the biggest mining pools are run by device manufacturers. So this creates a system where your device was manufactured by a certain party, which is also one of the competitors and reaping the rewards of proof of work or whatever the puzzle instance is. And they are running this pool that orchestrates distribution of work. So they consistently communicate with your device, as we'll see. So yeah, this basically creates an easy setup for any malicious party to leverage backdoors, as we'll see. So what are the attacker goals here? So for every participant, usually the expected reward is proportional to their puzzle solving ability. If you're an attacker, you want to lower other people's puzzle solving ability so that your proportional ability goes up. For example, if I own 10% of the hash rate of the network, and then half of the network goes out other than me, then now I suddenly own 20% of the network, right? So your respective ability goes up if other people go down. And similarly, the best case scenario, of course, for an attacker, if they just reap the reward of someone else's puzzle solving work, right? So we basically use 2 main threat models. One of them is the direct input model. In the direct input model, you buy some puzzle solving hardware, and then the person who you bought it from, the same individual also runs a pool that you're a part of that gives you, part of the work to do. And so they manufacture your hardware and they are continuously able to communicate to it because they are basically your relay to the blockchain. They give you all the information that comes from the blockchain, puzzle inputs, and so on. In the other case, you are buying, which is the blockchain input model, you're buying puzzle solving hardware from a manufacturer, but then going forward, you do not communicate with them or join their mining pool, so to say. So the only way they can communicate with the device is through the blockchain because, the device does take in inputs from the blockchain. The load shedding attack lowers the puzzle solving ability of the device every once in a while. And this is an input triggered attack. The attacker goal is they basically use an input to trigger the device once the device is online, and post receiving the trigger, the device performance declines. So in the direct input model, where your pool operator is also a device manufacturer, this is a very effective attack for obvious reasons, because they know the triggers and they send hashes to your devices directly, which look like certain block hashes or, the intermediate input to like a puzzle instance. In the blockchain input model, they don't have the ability to communicate with your device in this way. So the only way they can affect or trigger the device is by affecting the information on the blockchain. Of course, affecting the information on the blockchain takes a lot of stake or hash rate, and so this is costly and not as effective. We also have a stateful variant of the attacks, where your device keeps state over, let's say, 100 consecutive blocks, and the trigger has to be in the trigger set for a function that is computed over this 100 block state. One might say that, okay, if the attacks are being triggered based on inputs and then the device performance declines, how about you test your device for its puzzle solving rate? This would work well in theory, but in practice, as you can see on your screen, these are screenshots from actual mining devices. These devices operate within an error range of hash rate depending on the power efficiency, and they exhibit certain hardware errors without really giving reasons for why such errors occurred. And so this is exactly the symptom you would expect from backdoor devices. This is actually quite convenient from the malicious manufacturer standpoint. Now let's look at how good these load shedding attacks are, right? Selfish binding has a 33% hash rate threshold. Selfish binding allows a miner to just hide their found solution, and they continue mining and extending the chain on their own without revealing it to the other parties. And if they have a high enough hash rate, they can mine consecutive blocks together and reap the rewards, right? So in our case, if you look at this graph and the green line, a manufacturer that manufactures more than 40% of the devices and controls over 20% of the hash rate. And as we saw in the graph before, the pie chart, there does exist one manufacturer that satisfies this criterion. That manufacturer will actually be able to cross the selfish mining threshold by using the load shedding mechanism. Another mechanism is the leeching attack. In the leeching attack, you try to exfiltrate puzzle solutions every once in a while. And this is also based on input-based triggers. The exfiltration channel we use is lower level difficulty proof-of-work solutions. These are used to calculate pooled mining rewards in proof-of-work. For this to work, the attacker hardwires the device with a secret key, and then in the attack state, the device tries to exfiltrate some solution ciphertext. So it finds a solution and it tries to exfiltrate it without outputting it to the device owner. So you take these low-level difficulty puzzles, and let's say you set a certain bit of each puzzle to be the actual solution ciphertext. And so this works in both settings of submitting low difficulty solutions. So if you have a 1-by-1 submission, you can do rejection sampling such that you wait for the particular bit of the solution, the lower level solution, to be the actual solution ciphertext. And in the second setting, when the submission of low difficulty solutions happens per block, you just use the order to exfiltrate the solution, right? Here are some security games that we use to formalize these attacks. So let's talk about the subversion game first. In the subversion game, the attacker is talking to a device and it tries to figure out whether it's talking to an evaluation algorithm that is malicious or the non-malicious variant, right? The attacker knows what the malicious variant is, and the attacker has query access to the device on a polynomial number of inputs. In the end, the attacker outputs its guess for whether this device is subverted or not. As you can see, for our example, the attacker is the one who subverted the device. So it can very simply win the subversion game by just sending an input from the trigger set and then just observe the device behavior on that. On the other hand, we also formalize a detection game, which is trying to emulate whether a device owner can find out whether their device is subverted or not. So the setting is the same, but the detector here does not really know what the subversion looks like or what the subverted sets of inputs are, right? So this is the offline detection game. This emulates the setting where you buy a device and before deploying it online, you test it at home. You have query access in the same way, but the input trigger set is negligibly small. So by random sampling and checking its behavior on different inputs, it's hard for a detector to win this game, right? Then we also have the online detection game. In the online detection game, you have everything else that is same as the offline detection game, but you also have an attacker oracle. So this is supposed to emulate the setting where there is a detector that deploys their device online and then they observe its behavior. Perhaps they observe what inputs the pool operator is sending to it, and this improves detector's strength as they can observe whether particular inputs make the device go haywire. And yeah, this is a pretty strong detection model. The way we formalize an algorithm substitution attack for puzzles is that if there exists an attack such that the subverting adversary can win the subversion game, so they know when the device is subverted and the detection adversary cannot win a detection game. It can be an offline or an online detection game. Then what that means is that this attack can be deployed without being detected, and the subverter can benefit from it, right? And so that's how we formalize the security of puzzles against algorithm substitution attacks. Most of our attacks are online detectable. So in certain settings, it is possible to find out whether such attacks are possible. Here are some real world concerns, right? So these games are useful, but detection only comes to save the detector if it is fast, right? And testing and profitability of devices are at odds, right? Here's a paradox. If you don't trust your manufacturer, if you believe that they're malicious, that actually benefits them, because while your device is being tested, it is actually offline, and that increases the relative capabilities of a malicious manufacturer. There are many simple attacks that are hard to avoid, right? For example, what if inside the devices there was a timer that caused them to malfunction or stop functioning after a certain point? Such simple attacks are hard to avoid without having good supply chain processes for when these devices are being manufactured. This doesn't currently exist for Bitcoin mining hardware, at least. And the attacker could also just subvert devices at real-world difficulty parameters. This is in response to the fact that one might imagine testing to take part, to involve testing the device on easier puzzle solutions and see if it performs well. The device might as well perform well on those easier difficulty levels, but only in real world difficulty levels is when it fails. This is relevant because, for example, if you buy a mining device for Bitcoin that costs a few $1,000s, for it to find a real world difficulty solution, it's going to take months, if not a year. So we need to study easily testable puzzles. Here's one of the scariest analysis from the paper. So this is a graph which plots your hash rate of the device you bought versus a testing time for you to be able to say with high confidence whether your device is subverted or not. So if you see the line here, there's a point. So basically, if your device, the hardware that you bought, is less than $100,000, you will never find out with high confidence whether the device is subverted before the end of the device's lifespan. So for individual miners, this is actually bad news because there's no way to test and know for sure that your device is subverted. So we come up with a few countermeasures in this paper as well. One of them is pre-processing. So certain puzzles, such as proof of work, allow the puzzle solver to pre-process the puzzles. This happens before evaluation, and the puzzle solvers can try to add entropy so that they break the chain of what the malicious parties can select to go into the device and what actually goes into the device. With high enough entropy, this actually does yield most subversion futile. We call this unpredictable pre-processing, and this prevents most input-triggered backdoors. Another countermeasure is masking, where you mask the inputs that go into the puzzle-solving device. These are relevant for puzzles which are algebraic in nature. For example, PHAC VDFs are algebraic, so we propose a masking protocol which comes up with an algebraic mask on the input to a PHAC VDF evaluation algorithm. And once you get the output, you can easily unmask it. And the masking overhead is very minor over the VDF evaluation cost. It's close to 10 to the -6 factor of the evaluation cost. So this is quite promising, and this prevents this chain of what a malicious party wants to feed as a trigger and what actually goes into the device. So that's it. Thanks for watching the talk, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Feel free to email them.